My fiancé said, "I'm in survival mode. Your feelings come last," I replied. "Then survive without me." She thought I'd calm down overnight. Instead, I froze the wedding payments, packed her things, and changed the door code. 48 hours later, her sister was in my lobby saying Brianna had made a terrible mistake. Original post: I'm Travis, 33. Brianna is 30. I'm a physical therapist in Denver, and until 6 weeks ago, she was my fiancée. We were together 3 years, engaged for 8 months. She had been living in my condo for just under a year, mortgage in my name, utilities in my name. Most of the furniture mine because I bought the place 2 years before I met her. None of that bothered me at the time because I thought we were building something permanent. At the beginning, Brianna was easy to love. Warm, funny, smart in that fast, social way where she could walk into a room and make everybody feel like she already knew the best version of them. She worked in event marketing and she was good at it. She knew how to sell a mood, a vision, a story. That was part of the problem, I think. She could turn almost anything into a story. About 5 months before the breakup, one of her company's major accounts fell apart and her hours got cut. I felt bad for her. Genuinely, I told her to take a breath, use our spare room as an office, regroup. I covered more groceries, more utilities, more dinners out, than all of them. At first it made sense. She was stressed, burned out, embarrassed. I tried to be the steady one. But then, I'm stressed turned into I'm in survival mode. And I'm in survival mode turned into a free pass for every selfish thing she wanted to do. If she snapped at me for asking when she'd be home, survival mode. If she slept until noon and missed a vendor call for the wedding, survival mode. If I asked why she had spent $240 at a salon the same week I covered her car payment, survival mode. If she disappeared with friends on a Saturday after telling me she was too overwhelmed to talk, survival mode. The phrase started showing up every time accountability got close. And the worst part was, I kept letting it work on me. Because who wants to sound cruel to someone who says they're barely keeping it together? We had a wedding fund, nothing huge, just a dedicated savings bucket for deposits and the boring, expensive stuff no one posts on Instagram. Venue balance, photographer installment, rehearsal dinner deposit. There was $48.60 in it the week everything blew up. I found out because I got a banking alert while I was finishing patient notes on a Thursday afternoon. Withdrawal, $3,200. I thought it had to be fraud. It wasn't. When I got home, Brianna was on the couch in leggings and one of my old college sweatshirts, eating takeout and scrolling on her phone like the world had not just tilted. I asked her if she had moved money out of the wedding account. She didn't even look embarrassed, just tired. Annoyed that I was forcing a conversation she didn't feel like having. She said yes. I asked why. She told me her credit cards were maxed, she was behind on 2 monthly payments and she needed to breathe. Then she added, like it was obvious, that she had also booked 2 nights at a boutique hotel in Aspen for a reset weekend with her friend Kelsey because she was at a breaking point. I just stood there. $3,200, not for rent, not for food, not for a medical emergency, not because she was about to lose her car. A chunk of it went to back debt she had hidden from me, and the rest went to some healing weekend in the mountains. I asked why she thought it was okay to take wedding money without even calling me. She finally looked at me then, not guilty, irritated, and that's when she said it. I'm in survival mode. Your feelings come last. Exactly like that. Flat. Clean. Like she had used the line before and liked how it sounded. I said, Brianna, you took money we set aside together and spent it without asking. You lied about your debt. And now you're telling me I'm not allowed to be upset. She threw the takeout container onto the coffee table and stood up. She said I was making her stress about me. That I had no idea what it felt like to wake up every day feeling like you were drowning. That if I really loved her, I'd stop acting like this was some betrayal and start acting like a partner. Then she said, if you can't support me when I'm trying to survive, then what exactly are you good for? That was the moment it ended for me. Not because of the money, though that mattered. Because suddenly I understood my role. I wasn't her partner. I was infrastructure, emotional power grid, financial backup generator, someone she could drain while calling it support. I got very calm. I said, then survive without me. She blinked, like she thought I had gone off script. She said, "What did you just say?" I repeated it. Then I walked into my home office, opened my laptop, and emailed the venue, the photographer, and the caterer. I froze every payment authorization tied to my cards and asked for updated balances on what had already been paid. The numbers were ugly. Non-refundable venue deposit, $1,400. Photographer retainer, $650, half of it recoverable if canceled before the session date. Catering deposit, full $900 still recoverable because the tasting had not happened yet. Brianna kept talking from the hallway while I typed. "Travis, stop being dramatic. Travis, this is not the conversation. Travis, I need you to calm down. Travis, don't do anything stupid just because you're hurt." I didn't answer. I finished the emails, changed the condo entry code, transferred the remaining wedding balance into my personal account because every dollar in there had come from me. Then I started packing her essentials: work clothes, toiletries, prescription bottle, makeup case, laptop charger, 3 pairs of shoes, her winter coat, all neat, all labeled, not out of spite, out of finality. At around 11:30 that night she left, saying she was going to Kelsey's and that I'd come crawling back once I stopped punishing her for having a hard time. I said okay. That seemed to bother her more than anything else. By morning I had 17 missed calls and a paragraph text saying she never meant my feelings didn't matter literally and that I was weaponizing her stress against her. I didn't reply. I went to work, saw my patients, came home, slept in silence, and for the first time in months silence felt safer than love. Update 1: 2 days later, her sister Lauren showed up in my building lobby. Lauren and I had always gotten along. She was 3 years older than Brianna, taught 8th grade science in Aurora, and had the permanent expression of someone who had spent half her life cleaning up after other people's choices. The concierge called upstairs and asked if I wanted to come down. I did. Lauren looked exhausted, not angry, just tired. The first thing she said was, "Did she really say your feelings come last?" I said yes. Lauren closed her eyes for a second, like somebody had finally confirmed the thing she was already afraid was true. Then she said Brianna had been telling everyone I dumped her in the middle of a mental health crisis because I cared more about wedding deposits than her well-being. But Brianna had conveniently left out the part where she took the money first. I showed Lauren the bank alert, the frozen payment emails, and the text Brianna sent afterward saying, "I didn't think you'd make this into some moral issue." Lauren read everything and just exhaled. Then she said she thought you'd get scared and chase her. That matched what I was starting to realize. This wasn't just about stress. Brianna had built her entire adult emotional system around escalation. Push until the other person proves they'll stay. Drain them. Call it love. Lauren asked if Brianna could come upstairs for one talk. I said no, calmly. No big speech. Lauren nodded like she expected that. Then she asked if Brianna's remaining things were packed. I told her most of them were, and I could arrange pickup with the building manager present. She thanked me. That part mattered. She actually thanked me. I thought maybe that would be the end of it. It wasn't. That same night, Kelsey texted me from an unknown number saying Brianna was barely eating, barely sleeping, and that I needed to stop punishing her for trying to survive. I blocked the number. The next morning, a guy named Mason from Brianna's old work team messaged me on LinkedIn saying, "Hey man, not my place, but Brianna's having a rough time. Might be worth one conversation for closure." I replied once. She took $3,200 from our wedding fund without asking and told me my feelings come last. There is no closure conversation. He never wrote back. On Sunday, pickup day, Brianna tried a new angle. She brought her mother. I'd only met Dana a handful of times, but she was the kind of woman who looked like she didn't scare easily. She also looked completely over it before the conversation even started. My building manager, Trevor, stood there with a clipboard while Brianna walked through the boxes like she expected to catch me stealing from her. She kept making these little comments for effect. Wow, guess 3 years fits into cardboard, so this is how disposable I was. I hope this made you feel strong. I ignored all of it. Then she opened the shoe box, realized I had packed everything carefully, and seemed almost disappointed that there was nothing sloppy to point at. Finally, she turned to Dana and said, "Can you please tell him this is cruel?" Dana looked at her and said, "Did you take the money or not?" Brianna froze. Dana asked again. Brianna said, "I was going to put it back." Dana said, "That's not what I asked." Silence. Then Dana looked at me and said, "Travis, if anything else needs to be coordinated, send it through Lauren. I don't want surprise visits or scenes." That shocked me. Brianna looked like somebody had slapped her. On the way out, she stopped in the lobby and said, "You're really just going to leave me like this while I'm trying to stay afloat?" I told her, "You're not drowning, Brianna. You just don't like consequences." Trevor later told me, very dryly, that if she came back unannounced, he'd document it. 3 days later, she did. She sat outside my building in my old gray hoodie, crying into her phone like she was auditioning for sympathy. Trevor called me before she could even reach the elevators. I didn't go down. He told her to leave. She sent me a text from another number 5 minutes later. "I hope you're proud of yourself. Some of us are just trying to survive." Blocked. That week, I signed up for an advanced sports rehab certification I had been putting off for months because wedding planning kept eating my weekends. I also started sleeping better. Those two facts felt connected. Update 2, the fake emergency came exactly 16 days after the breakup. At 114 in the morning, I got a voicemail from Kelsey sobbing so hard I could barely make out the words. Something about Brianna collapsing. Something about urgent care. Something about how if I ever loved her, I needed to come now. For 10 seconds, I thought about grabbing my keys. Then I stopped, because this was Kelsey. The same Kelsey who thought Aspen counted as healing. The same Kelsey who had texted me from burner numbers like she was part of some emotional relay race. So instead of driving anywhere, I called Lauren. She picked up on the second ring and sounded awake in the grim, resigned way people do when they have been waiting for disaster from a specific person. I asked if Brianna was okay. Lauren said yes. Why? I played the voicemail on speaker. There was a long pause. Then Lauren said, "She is literally at Kelsey's apartment right now posting old beach photos to her private story and drinking canned wine." That was when something in me clicked into place permanently. Until then, I had still been carrying around a little bit of guilt. Maybe I had moved too fast. Maybe I should have given one final conversation. Maybe I had been harsher than necessary. The fake collapse killed all of that. The next morning, I saved every text, voicemail, and contact attempt into a folder labeled Brianna. Then, I booked a consultation with an attorney named Cole. Cole listened, looked through the screenshots, and said, "You don't need to wait for this to become worse before treating it like a pattern." That phrase stuck with me too. A pattern, not chaos, not confusion, a pattern. He drafted a cease and desist letter that afternoon. No direct contact. No third-party contact, no visits to my home or workplace, no deliveries. No emergency claims unless they involved actual police or medical staff. Brianna lost it. First came a 6-paragraph email about how I had turned love into legal intimidation. Then came an Instagram story about being abandoned by a man who preached compassion, but vanished when things got real. I only knew because one mutual friend, Tessa, sent me screenshots and added, "For what it's worth, this looks insane." I thanked her and saved those too. Then Brianna showed up at my clinic. Front desk called me around 840. "There's a woman here with coffee saying she's your fiancée and she just wants 2 minutes. I went to the lobby because I didn't want a scene around patients, and of course there she was. Hair done. Full makeup. Holding 2 coffees and wearing the navy dress she'd worn on our engagement photos. Calculated, not distressed. She smiled when she saw me like we were just 2 people in a rough patch. She said, "Can we please stop doing this?" I told her to leave. She held out a coffee, said she knew I was hurt, said she was trying. Said surviving had made her selfish and she could admit that now. I said, you admitted it after a cease and desist. Her face hardened for a second, then softened again when she noticed 2 reception staff watching. She said, Travis, please. I'm fighting for us. I said, no, you're fighting for access. That landed. Her whole expression changed. Then she said the dumbest thing possible in a medical office lobby. If you don't give me 10 minutes, I'll just wait outside until you do. Security walked her out 5 minutes later. The clinic director asked me to document everything in writing. I did. So did the receptionist. 2 days after that, I met Brooke. Not my ex Brooke. Different Brooke. Yes, I know that sounds made up, but it isn't. She was a 31-year-old ER nurse who joined the same early morning running group I had been half-heartedly attending for cardio. We ended up next to each other on a trail near Sloan's Lake. She made fun of my stretching routine. I told her physical therapists invented stretching, so legally I was right. She laughed. Easy. That was the word again. Easy conversation, easy humor. No decoding, no emotional tax. We got coffee the next weekend. Apparently Brianna heard about it almost immediately because Chaos has Wi-Fi. She cornered us outside a coffee shop near Lodhu the following Sunday. Not physically dangerous, just shameless. She walked straight up, looked at Brooke, then looked at me and said, wow, so this is your survival plan. Brooke stepped back. I told Brianna to leave. Instead, she started crying and saying I had replaced her while she was still fighting for her life. That phrase was especially rich given the fake urgent care performance. When I still didn't engage, she knocked Brooke's iced coffee out of her hand. Not a dramatic swing, a little slap across the cup. Enough to make the lid pop off and coffee splash all over the sidewalk and Brooke's jeans. That was it. A nearby off-duty officer who happened to be in line came over because people had already started staring. He took statements. Brooke stayed calm. Brianna kept trying to reframe the whole thing as a misunderstanding. The officer gave her a trespass warning for the shopping center and told me quietly that I should follow through with whatever legal steps I was already taking. So I did. Cole filed for a protective order Monday morning. Final update court was 3 weeks later. I wore a gray suit and brought a binder thick enough to stop pretending this was just heartbreak. Texts, emails, voicemails, building logs from Trevor, statement from the front desk at my clinic, statement from Brooke, screenshots of the fake collapse voicemail, copies of the cease and desist, even the frozen wedding deposit emails from night 1 because they showed exactly when everything changed. Brianna showed up in a cream sweater and minimal makeup, looking fragile in a way I recognized instantly. Dana came with her. Lauren too. Neither one smiled at me. Her attorney tried to build the usual story. A stressed woman, mental health challenges, a painful breakup, miscommunication, overreaction on my part. Cole slid the urgent care voicemail transcript across the table and said, my client may have overreacted if this were one event. It wasn't. It was a sequence. Then he read Brianna's exact line from my kitchen. I'm in survival mode. Your feelings come last. The judge looked up and asked Brianna if she had said it. She tried to pivot. Said she was overwhelmed. Said she didn't mean it literally. Said Travis knew how bad things had gotten for her emotionally. The judge asked whether overwhelming emotions gave her the right to take money, send friends, fake emergencies, show up at work, and create a public scene after written notice to stop contact. She didn't answer that one well. Then the judge said something I will probably remember forever. Survival is not a license to consume other people. Silence. Real silence. The kind that lands. He granted the protective order. 18 months, no contact, no third-party contact. Stay 300 feet away from my home, workplace, and any location specifically named in the order, including the running club's weekly meet site. Brianna cried immediately. Dana looked down. Lauren looked relieved, which honestly hurt more than the crying, because it told me this wasn't new, just newly documented. Outside the courtroom, Lauren caught up to me near the elevator and said, I'm sorry it got this far. I told her I knew she tried. Then Dana stepped forward and said, very quietly, she uses the word survive when she means avoid accountability. That summed up the entire relationship better than I ever could. A month later, I got promoted to senior therapist at the clinic. The certification course finished. My weekends stopped revolving around emotional cleanup. My condo felt like mine again. Brooke and I kept seeing each other slowly. No games, no dramatic declarations. One night she texted, running late, save me a seat, and I remember staring at that message because it was so normal it felt luxurious. No test hidden inside it, no trap, no lesson, just a person being honest. That's when it really hit me. Actual survival is quiet, it's paying your bills, telling the truth. Asking for help without making your crisis somebody else's prison. It's not stealing from the future and calling it self-care. It's not weaponizing fragility so nobody can challenge you. It's not demanding loyalty while treating the other person like emergency rations. Brianna kept saying she was in survival mode like the phrase itself should erase the damage. It didn't, because surviving is one thing, using people is another. For months, I confused support with sacrifice. I thought love meant making myself smaller whenever she got louder. I thought compassion meant absorbing whatever she threw at me because she said she was struggling. Now, I think love without accountability is just slow destruction with better branding. The night she said my feelings came last, I finally heard what she had been saying for months in different ways, that my role was to carry both of us while pretending not to notice the weight. I was done after that. And weirdly, that decision saved more than my money or my peace. It saved my idea of what love is supposed to feel like. Not a disaster you manage, not a person you finance into respecting you, not a crisis you're trapped inside. Something steadier than that, safer than that, mutual. If you've ever dealt with anything like this, subscribe, like, and share this story. And comment below whether you've faced something similar or what your opinion is on how Travis handled it.